You ready?
All right, yes sir.
Okay, this is Jim Fincham, soil scientist. This has been my design guy and my all-around workhorse. We're going to do coring tools today. This is a 54-inch coring tube. It has a bit on the end of it, very sharp. It'll actually penetrate rock to some degree. And what we do is we start out by inserting it. We put a cap on that is hollow. We use a very large rotary hammer. We're going to start an engine here, and you'll see the rotary hammer pound this down in. Go. Drive it in 48 to 50 inches. Then we have an extracting tool. It's just an old lever, one of the oldest tools in the world. It slides over the tube. It grips it, and you'll see how Ben is able to extract that tube using his body weight on his foot. Very efficient design. Very efficient way to get a continuous, undisturbed core of soil. And then we're going to let that slide out into the tube, or this tray over here. It'll lay there until I'm done. I can measure exactly what depth I find reduction, as well as oxidation, the different layers of colors, different horizons of the soil. It's all very easy to do, and you'll see it just slides right out. Come look at this now.
Scoot it back this way.
Yeah, I'll get
A lot of it shut down.
it. Yes. Again, we have an undisturbed core. And it's very, very easy to see the differences. Here we have the surface layer, a nice dark brown. We've got actually a 7.5 YR, probably a 5.4 down to here. You can see there's some manganese concentrations have developed at this level in the core. That would suggest that there is a restriction in the soils below. The manganese slowed down as the column restricted the water. It oxidized after it was reduced up in here. It's just very, very easy to see what's going on with this entire profile, and I can see exactly what it is at a glance. Where if I dig a hole like we're going to, it comes out disturbed, and I should get down in a hole. I quit going into holes many, many years ago. Seen too many collapse. If you want to dig me a pit, it's got to be at least 10, 20 feet wide, and however deep you want to go for the profile description. You can see Ben's putting together the extension on the tube. The pins come out once in a while, so we tape them in. So now we've got two 54-inch pieces on there, so we can go potentially 80, 90 inches deep. And we've got others. I mean, if we were going to do even deeper cores, all we got to do is bring other extensions. Go ahead. flowed way down, which means we're in the substratum and we've got a more dense material, whether it's sand or more gravel. It's resistant to penetration. But again, this is valuable for me assessing the profile because I can see up top we have good permeability. When it slows down like that, permeability is far less, unless it's coarse sands and gravel. But we'll see when we extract it. I'll point out that a coring tool in the soil handbook is described as the tool to use for an undisturbed core. An auger is describing a disturbed core. I don't want to see a disturbed core. The track hole will give us a disturbed core as far as what we pull out. Then you got to get into the pit and look at the horizon that way. It does give you an undisturbed horizon, but in this case I have sunlight directly onto this core, where if I'm looking at a vertical hole, I don't get sunlight onto the PEDs or the blocks of soils. I can't tell the colors anywhere near as well as I can tell them when they're in this tray. So in less than 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most, we're going to have 60-70 inches of soil core laying in this tray, and I'll be able to describe it at my leisure. The only drawback is if it's raining, they do melt, so we don't do it during the rain. I used an auger for probably 6 months, and that was 30 years ago, and I've been using this tool ever since, simply because I get an undisturbed core that I can measure depths, I can get the soil colors, I can sit there and work with the texture and the structure, and I can describe it very accurately in just a very few minutes. Sometimes the subsoils have more clay, so it's a little more difficult to get the core to come out because it adheres to the tube wall. I use a Trimble GOXH. It's a field computer. I have on it the Plan Maker program, and it's a program that I can just have drop down boxes, and I can check off the different descriptions that I need to provide that soil profile description. Try to be as efficient as we can so we can do enough work that we can stay up with our clients' needs. So, highly recommend this type of extraction of cores, because it is just, for me, it's the perfect way to do it. Now Ben's having to break the cohesion of the moist clays, silty clays, sandy clays, whatever they are, and it takes a little while to persuade them to come down. But they do eventually come down. If you want to look in the Argo, because this is an 8-wheel drive Argo, We've got a box for the rotary hammer. We've got a generator. We got all kinds of hand tools. This is a coring tool also. It's 16 inches long, and I will do shallow cores with this. And here's our surface layer, very obvious. Here's our nice reddish brown subsoil. I can get a 16 inch. I can do this whole lot in 10 minutes and tell what I've got. What is the depth of the surface layer? What's the depth to the perched water table? We have no perched water table here because there are no low chromas in this profile. Again, a very, very nice soil. Get my color book out. The color book is the Bible for any soil scientist. If they're not using the color book, they're guessing at the colors. Color books deteriorate. I buy a new one every 2 to 3 years. They fade and the grays look grayer, and the bright reds, they also look grayer. So it's very important to use the color book in everything that you do. So what we're going to do here is try to match this up. Here we have a pretty good match with a 7.5 YR, and then we have it's in the 5 row of the value, and the chroma is in the 4 value. It's just kind of between the 4 value and the 5 value. For this one, I'm going to call it probably a 10 or 7.5 YR 44. It's a beautiful color. There has been no reduction of these soils so that we have no low chroma. Low chroma is developed by the release of electrons by bacteria that are decomposing organic matter. Organic matter is introduced wastewater, or it is roots, worms, other bacteria. As the respiration process goes through its cycle, the waste product of the bacteria digesting actually releases that electron. Something has to absorb that electron. The electron, first in saturated conditions, and I'm talking as much as 30 days of saturation, that electron is absorbed by oxygen in the water. The oxygen is depleted after 30 days because it's absorbed all of the electrons it can absorb. After that, with continued saturation, iron and manganese are next in line to absorb those electrons. The electrons, after 90 to 120 days, have saturated the iron and the manganese. They are then water soluble. The iron and manganese then lift off of the soil particle, generally clays and sands or silts, and the underlying color of the particle is gray. So when I find gray in the profile, it's not just a model, it's actually an indicator that we have long-term saturation of the soils where oxygen is depleted by absorbing its maximum amount of electrons, and then iron and manganese are also saturated and become water soluble, lift off the soil particle, revealing the gray. So that's the process by which we are using soils to determine the length of saturation in any given profile. Obviously, in this profile, there is no continuous saturation anywhere near 30 days. So we have continually excess oxygen to absorb the electrons. Therefore, we have a very, very good medium into which we can disperse septic water, wastewater, and we are never going to have anaerobic conditions develop. So you can put anaerobic wastewater into these soils. The oxygen is in excess, so it very quickly allows the bacteria to decompose that wastewater or the organics in it. And the beautiful part is when this soil condition exists with excess oxygen, your end product of the bacterial digestion is carbon dioxide and water. If you have anaerobic digestion where you do not have enough oxygen, you get a waste product of hydrogen sulfide and methane gas, and that's what you smell. So in soils like this, we have to have a very small design, a very small system, because we have excess oxygen. In soils that have very shallow grays, it's saying we don't have much oxygen, especially during the growing season or the wet season more specifically. So we have to have a big treatment system. So soils are the perfect medium into which to put raw sewage. You can use a small area for very good soils, big area for soils that are showing you a lot of gray. So there you kind of got what we do. This is, to me, the best system for extracting an undisturbed core. We use the Argo. We can go anywhere with this thing. It'll do everything but climb trees. It'll float, it'll go through water. It's an amazing tool, and I try to work for longevity for myself, so I don't want to have to work too hard. This thing does most of the work for me. Again, Jim Fincham, soil scientist, live in Chardon, and if you have needs, we'll try and help you.
Thank you.